Historians say that in the 1700s, many of the first Spanish settlers in San Antonio were from the Canary Islands, and nearly a third were black. But they were not equals in the eyes of the Spaniards, and they were separated by racial lineage after settling in the area.
The San Antonio River was the first line of segregation in the history of San Antonio.
There was a clear boundary between white Spaniards who classified black people as lower class and associated them with slavery.
If you were of dark skin, you were Native American, you were dark-skinned Mexican, you had to live on the eastern side of the river.
After the slavery period and during Reconstruction in the 1860s, Jim Crow segregation laws forced many black San Antonians to create their own communities. St. Paul Square became the epicenter of San Antonio's black community on the east side. Many historic East Side churches like St. Paul Methodist and Mount Zion also became safe havens as racial tensions in the South remained high.
The African American church was one of the few places in those early days where you could gather, you could obtain a measure of respect, you could learn. It was a safe space.
After slavery is over, and you look for leaders, it's the church that becomes that space that can bring people together. And so many of the leaders, the first political leaders, many of them were ministers or deacons, because these are people that had the ability to read, people that had the ability to write. They were literate. They were in a position where they had the authority to speak.
In the 1920s, the East Side saw significant growth during the Great Migration, when thousands of black people were driven from their homes by the lack of economic opportunities and harsh segregation laws in the rural South.
San Antonio is part of that migration. I would imagine that in this time period, the black population is increasing as blacks from the countryside outside of San Antonio, from places like Seguin and others, are moving in. And as they move in, they're bringing their skills, their talents.
During this time, San Antonio also became the second city in Texas to have an NAACP chapter. The chapter's influence, along with the churches on the East Side, led to the birth of many prominent black community leaders, such as John Grumbles and Charles Bellinger, people who had political pull not only on the East Side, but other parts of San Antonio.
For African Americans, self-determination is important. These are self-made men and women. And so you find that they're buying up property, they're accumulating these assets, and that the major black political leaders will kind of also be investors in the community. And the community will recognize and respect them as investors in that community.
San Antonio's history with the military also gave black leaders a voice. The defense industry pushed for a message of anti-racism, and this gave an opportunity for many East Side residents to speak out on civil rights issues.
If you work for a white individual, you may not want to be on the front lines. But if you were your own business leader, your business owner, you owned your own business, or you work with the military, these are going to be the people who will push for civil rights. And because the East Side community has that, it's got a foundation of leaders that can emerge.
The East Side became a hub for the arts, religion, culture, and business. Despite a smaller black population compared to other Texas cities, San Antonio's black leaders were responsible for many accomplishments that have had a lasting impact.
And so really, San Antonio is a place where it's happening. It's live, it's exciting, and maybe because of a little more leeway in race relations or leeway for African Americans to express themselves, it's a place where African Americans have some opportunity here.
Now there is a balancing act of preserving what so many residents fought to build while also moving the East Side into the future.
In December of 2019, the East Side of San Antonio was named the top 10 most gentrified cities in the United States. And so it is seeing a lot of development, it's seeing a lot of movement, but unfortunately, some of that development does cause us to lose some of the history, some of the richness and the culture.
San Antonio for Growth on the East Side wants to honor the East Side's history while also making sure new developments incorporate what residents need.
And you see Red Berry Mansion just opened up. That is in the heart of the East Side. We have the ETSI, the East Side Education Training Center, that's working on job force and workforce development. We've got St. Philip's College, the only HBCU on this side of the Mississippi and Hispanic serving institution. Then, we've got all of our other partners that are really doing some great things. Velocity, Texas, that's coming to bring in STEM jobs and things. So the development is happening, And we just need to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of all those things to make sure that it is incorporated into the fabric of the community.